This is our Findhorn Barrel podcast number 17, and I'm Alex Wright. I'm currently in Cornelia's house in a sunshine room. It's getting very hot this May. We might have to open the door in a bit. It's probably fine, actually. You can probably open the door. I'm already getting a bit hot. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Creating One Incredible Family website and the history behind it. Why was it created?
Thank you for asking me for the interview. That's great.
Because I know we've put quite a few of our podcast episodes have been put onto the website.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we're very keen on them because they're lovely and they're very relevant to the collective autobiography.
So I was doing a bit of background research. You started this after the 60th birthday, is that right?
No, actually, it started after, straight after the fires, actually. Liza, Leona and myself met in the cafe a few weeks after the fire, just when lockdown was easing off again and we could meet. And we said, oh, what are we going to do? You know, this is such a... lockdown has been such a burden and the redundancies have been so difficult. And now, the CC is gone, the sanctuary is gone. What can we do? Yeah. And it was remarkable. It was one of these group attunements in a coffee shop where we all three got very clearly that we should celebrate the 60th birthday and that we should create a platform for people to tell the story. Their story with this place, but also the story of the place. We didn't know how or what or whatever, but that was very clear. So for 2022, the evolvement of the 2021 and 22, the evolving of the 60th birthday and the website sort of went parallel in the same group. It was the same organizing group. We didn't set out to do a website. We set out to do something to tell the stories. And it was, for me, also very clear that it's in the tradition of personal sharing, which is such an important aspect of our experiences here in the community, a huge aspect of Experience Week itself, but also how we manage our community culture and our community connection is through personal sharing where we can. And that is a very healing and at times transformative gift in the culture we have. Initially, we expected only personal stories. But as time went by, we realized that there are other aspects that also want to be there. And so the website is now a lot more than personal stories. Yeah. Because personal stories today is largely reminiscing, which is a different thing from being a collective autobiography. So the concept of collective autobiography dropped in quite early on. It was actually Catherine Collis who said in a meeting, becoming 60, that's when you write your autobiography.
So is it largely a history thing? Is it what is the main purpose of the website?
Great question, because initially our initial slogan was, as we honor the past, we meet in the present, and together we step into the future. So again, coming from that very traumatic time of the fires and lockdowns and everything changing because there were no guests and all that. It was also a bit of identity finding and finding each other and healing relationships. Now, 3 years on, it is mainly the community history because many other aspects in the community have picked up some of these other strands. Yeah. So we are now not doing our own newsletter, for instance, but are part of the community newsletter. Whereas for almost 3 years, we were the main newsletter that came out from the community, but it was, of course, focused on what we were doing for the history project. So as the community has evolved over the last 3 years and the history project has evolved, our remit has actually become clearer that it is really the collective autobiography, the documenting of the history of the place. But we're also saying history starts today. So we are keen on capturing the evolving, emerging strands of the community, as well as reporting what was happening over the 63 years now in this place.
I tried counting all the different people It took a long time. I think there's about 300 and something people on there now.
Yeah. So that's still, yeah. So the way how we initially set up the website was there were our stories and there were people. And people are community members, past and present, who build this center of light one way or another. And also those with significant relationships, like Sir George Trevelyan was never a community member, but obviously he's on the website because he was very formative. Or trustees that have held this place for such a long time, but have never actually been a community member resident. So the definition is a bit vague, but basically we say community members past and present, and those with significant relationships with the community. And they can sign up and register how they came here and how long have they been here and how they were involved, and tell us, a very short bio of who they are. We're also making what we call posthumous profiles of people who have died, but we have permission from the family or the close friends or executors to put them up because they had a role to play in the community. And so, yeah, there are over 400 people there now. And it's just, for me, it's this gallery page that you were counting is reminiscent of the photo board that we had in the hall. And I loved standing in front of that board and seeing these hundreds of little portraits with just a little bit of information about where they now work or what they do. So Adriana, in the 50th birthday book, which was a little bit of a guide for us, a 50th birthday book of the concept of how we set out the website, she has the photo boards at the front and the back. And we said, oh, we want that. And so that's how we created that gallery. And we also, the technology on it is that it's random. So whenever you go back in, it will be arranged differently. So there is no hierarchy. There's not somebody who always comes up first, which is an expression of it, that everyone matters deeply and their contribution has built this place. Yeah. So I love that page. It's very slow now loading because there's so many on there, but I love it. And I hope that we will be able to continue and even improve that technology around that. Yeah. We have a very large team. I joked with Alec Walker at one stage saying, we have stepped into the footsteps of people who've done the history, and most notably Mike Scott, who's done phenomenal amount of work and collated a lot of the significant documents from the early years and the timeline and all. I mean, there was already so much wonderful work done. And then there was Keith Armstrong, who worked for 10 years on the archive, who created this famous 100 gigabyte drive, that was shared quite freely from the Foundation archive. And Keith is part of our core team, and he comes to our three weekly meetings roughly on Zoom from Wales. We have someone who came through creating Findhorn where you are in the lockdown. She has stayed connected with Findhorn all through those years and heard a year ago that we were looking for a volunteer. And so she's now part of our core team. And we are 6 or 7 in the core team. And we each do different roles, have different strengths. But together we hold that and make editorial decisions, support each other to write what we call topics, which are sort of Reader's Digest of essential features of the community. And we have just scraped the surface of that with about 17 of those, summarizing like the Universal Hall or the Game of Transformation or Cluny, the history of Cluny when Cluny was sold, to just put a place where people can go in and read the sort of broad brush and then dive deep through hyperlinks into stories that tell more details about that particular aspect. So our core team is quite active. We have socials sometimes in the cafe, and whoever is around can come. But we don't have any sort of programs yet based on the website, but there is some ideas that could be useful, because it is actually quite a vast resource, which is quite difficult to navigate. And unless you have the equanimity to travel it with the mystery school and just trust that you will find what you're meant to read that moment, it is good to know a little bit about it. And we try to put that on the homepage by saying, there is the most recent stories. So if you click on that, you get the last 20 stories. So if you're a regular visitor and you want to know, that's where you go, and then you see what has been put up. And there is the topics, as I've just said, these digest summary synopses of areas. Suzanne, who is our creating Findhorn, where you are a distant community member, she lives in Derbyshire, but for personal reasons will not be able to visit. But she has had the strong impulse, gift, guidance, whatever you call it, to create something called Offerings to Inspire, which are just very short snippets. Or musings, as she calls them. She calls them Saturday snippets and midweek musings, where she just takes a short quote. And for a lot of people, that's all they get. And yet they find that very meaningful. Or they can click on the link where she's taken it from and then go down the rabbit hole. What we create is almost like a Wikipedia. We are trying to put in as many hyperlinks as possible so that people could find out more rather than just read one bit. But yes, it is a bit of a rabbit warren, and the search function is not yet up to scratch, and we're waiting for AI because this website has been produced on a shoestring by volunteers. Most of us are over 60, most of us are over 70. So for us to work with this medium is quite a stretch. Putting in too much admin burden would have hampered us. And so we decided to slide on that one, which then now means that the search function is not as useful as it could be. And so we just ask people to bear with us and accept it as part of the mystery school. But the other place where you can find something quite quickly and easily is what we call the chronological content list of the website. So we have a page which is called New Editions, where we put in the new members that have joined and the new stories that have been put up since the last newsletter. So that's always sort of 6 to 10 members and anything up to 40 stories, depending how active we were in that six weeks or so. And because that is all on one page, you could actually use the search function on the page, the Command F, put a term in there, and then find it in the title and the persons as author. So that's a quick trick to get some things out of the website which you may be looking for.
I tend to just go on Google because I think Google's better at searching your site than your site is. Just go on Google, type in, the name of the website, and then I put in the person or whatever.
Oh, fantastic. I've never tried that. I shall. Wonderful. That's a great way of doing it. Yeah.
How many articles do you put up every day? Because it seems like there's every time there's more added. So
it's very difficult to say because we have, it depends totally on what people send us. The unsolicited submissions are completely out with our control.
That people can log in and create
just
an
tell us your
themselves.
story. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that comes to the editorial team and we make that post quite quickly. The stories that we are involved in generating, they come from the Rainbow Bridge, for instance. If I see an article on the Rainbow Bridge that I go, I want that one, then I have to write to them and say, will you give permission? And I have to wait. But if it comes back, then we do that. And then there are bigger projects. And they sometimes take longer because, for instance, one of the inspiring things that I've worked with for several months is Annie's Gutini-Worth's My Generation memoir, where I think 12 chapters were totally relevant to the community story in the 70s. So we put it up as an ebook so that people can read it as a book. And then I extracted and it was my job in the team to do that particular project. And I extracted the relevant chapters, and Anis gave me photographs, and the formatting actually takes quite a lot of work. You can't just copy and paste across. So it is quite a lot of work. So some of them take a lot longer and others go very quickly. So I can't actually tell you, but looking at the new editions, just as an average, it possibly is about 40-ish in 6 weeks. Yeah. Right now, I'm working on Visions Unseen by Francis Ripley. And that's coming about because Caroline Waldman has had this inspiration to create something to make the connection with the subtle realms more tangible. And her particular focus is music. But when she mentioned that to me, I thought, yeah, there is also many other things already in our history. So we got permission from Francis's estate that we could put that book up. And because it's beautifully produced, but there's a lot of print behind the words on the page. So the PDF is quite hard diet to read. So I'm extracting the text. And oh my God, there's so much mistakes because the optical character recognition gets confused by the images behind the letters. So this will take me weeks to put up.
So if people want to create a profile and upload stuff themselves, how do they do that? How do they create it?
They just go to the website and go to the members area where it says not registered yet, put in their name, fill in the profile. The questions are a bit awkward because of our complicated community. Initially, 3 years ago, it was still relatively easy. We said, when did you arrive in the Findhorn Foundation community? Because, of course, with the village's name difficulties, we can't just say, when did you arrive at Findhorn? And so it's all a bit awkward, but it says that. But then some people say, well, I've never been in the Findhorn Foundation community. I was in the Findhorn Foundation. Or now, of course, that term even doesn't make so much sense anymore. But we're asking people to bear with it and just say, okay, when did you arrive? And did you leave? When? And what did you do here? Yeah. And so there's an opportunity to just describe very in bullet points what you've done, education, worked in the Phoenix or lived in North Winds or, whatever the touch points are, or taught in the Steiner School or whatever. And then there is a 30-word bio. Now, it's a very short profile. And once you've set that up, you can click on a button that is almost everywhere on the website, which says, tell us your story. And that goes into a form where you can upload a Word document and photographs, which then come to the editorial team. And the main request we make to people is basically based on the common ground. Tell us your story. Don't point fingers at anybody. We wouldn't publicize names where we feel that the person may not be happy to have their name mentioned in that context. We would get back to the author and say, can you reframe that? But we now have, I think, 1,400 posts up there. I think we only debated a handful of posts in the team, and it was only 2 that we haven't put up in all those years. Yeah. And other posts that are up there, the first big batch that went up there was actually Adriana's book. I got one morning that as the website was modeled on the book, that the book could be there because it was out of print and it's a gorgeous production. It needs to be made available. So we went through the rigmarole of getting all those permissions sorted. And Sylvia Robertson did a fantastic job of writing, 180 letters for permissions. And eventually we got them all lined up. And so all those stories are now up on the website. So there are 150 stories from that book that are there. Another big batch that we got the permission sorted was for The Kingdom Within, Alec Walker's history in 1994. So we have sort of quite complete snapshots of history backwards. 2012 with Adriana's book, 1994 with Alec Walker's book. We have permission for The Faces of Findhorn, which is a 1980 production. We haven't had time yet to put that up because the character recognition is quite poor on that and the photographs are very poor. So that's a substantial piece of work to do. It's on our to-do list. It will come. And the other big addition came when we got permission from Terry Gilby from the foundation to put up what was made available, the online drive, what Keith had put together, these 100 gigabytes. And there's a vast amount of materials there. So we're plowing our way through that. We always prioritize unsolicited stories or stories that come with a certain relevance for now, like in a topic or in what's going on in the community. And the sort of other things are on our backlog because the other permissions we got was to put up the One Earth magazine and Network News as full issues. So that was Suzanne's first big job. That's what she volunteered for when she said, I'll come on board. And so all those issues are up now. So you can click on One Earth and you can read all the issues of One Earth all the way back to 1973, which I think is just a fantastic resource, because history seen through the eye of the time is very different from history seen through reminiscing today. And so we really want both.
I had no idea you had so much stuff up there, because I think I go on the website and you just have no idea that there's, we say 1,400 articles. Because I don't know if there's any way of laying it out to show the amount of stuff on there, because there's
we
too
would
much.
love to improve that. If you have any idea, of if any of the listeners have any idea, just there's a contact form on there. Write to us, get in touch, let us know how we can improve it. This is our collective construction. And yes, there are 10 sort of people at the moment on the coal face, but we can't do this by ourselves. Yeah, and most of us are also quite elderly, so younger people with clever ideas how to do things are most welcome to even point us in the right direction. And if anybody feels that they want to do something with it, please welcome and write us a note. Yeah.
Do you is the website owned by a formal body of people?
Yes.
Is it an organization that's registered or something?
Yes, it's the NFA.
Right.
So when this all started, NFA Council, and particularly listener convener at the time, Lorraine, had many meetings with the foundation management about how to handle that history. Because a lot of it was copyrighted and held by the Findhorn Foundation, and we didn't really care. We just kept working away as a volunteer group. And the decision was made between foundation management and NFA that it should be owned by the NFA. So in the footer of the website, if you go on any page all the way down, it says three logos. It's owned by the NFA, it's supported by a grant from PET, and it's supported by the Findhorn Foundation with a phenomenal amount of historical material. Yeah. So that's why those 3 logos are there. But the ownership, the legal responsibility is with NFA, and we carry that relatively diligently. So we've done a phenomenal amount of policies and procedures around copyrights and permissions, and we are very committed to not publishing anything that could put the NFA at any risk, because copyright is such a big legal domain now in our world, that we just need to be very, very careful. And it takes up a lot of bandwidth to get all these permissions, to get them and to file them and to connect them with the pieces where we put them. And again, it's Sylvia who does that. And it's something that I wouldn't be able to do. And spreadsheets after spreadsheets and filing system to get that all sorted.
Do you have any plans to do anything in print or at the moment, or is it just a website?
No, it's just a website. It's just too much. George Goudsmit once said, why don't you do a coffee table book again? And it would take up so much resource, So if somebody would feel inspired to go to the website and do that, fantastic. We would collaborate with them. But our trusted band of amateurs that work for the love of it just don't have the bandwidth to do that at the moment, nor the capital, to be honest. The way how we've operated the website so far is we've raised £5,000 through PET initially. We're still drawing that down. So our web weaver did a fantastic job at a shoestring. We now have so much volume and so many plugins that our annual cost is now about £1,000. It was less, but because we now have 1,400 stories alone, the hosting alone, but also the plugins and stuff. So we need to set aside about £1,000 a year to just run it. But I think if you would tell anybody that we've done this website on £5,000 and we still have £700 to pay for this year, they wouldn't believe it. And it is because there are hundreds and hundreds of hours of people working on it, dozens of people working on it. Yeah.
And I saw there's a donate page. People can donate money to the...
And that goes to PET. And they hold that, and then that feeds that grant. Yeah. And we will have to be more explicit quite soon, because the NFA budget isn't, they back it. but we wouldn't want. I feel this is a community project that can fund itself and should fund itself, and I think it does deliver so much value to readers that we're just trusting that they will feel inspired to click on that button and donate. Yeah.
Do you think you'll run any events? That could be a good fundraiser by doing that.
Yeah. Again, question of bandwidth. We'd love people to come and do, and there is a lot of material. I mean, when we got mainly Magnus, we have that film for 10 years. We have permission from the BBC to have that film on the website. It's incredibly precious. It took Sylvia a year to get that, and Mike Scott helped a lot with getting that permission. But it's only a 10-year license at the moment. So when we got that initially, we talked with the hall, let's do an event and stuff. And then we ran out of steam as a volunteer group. We just said, oh gosh, we have all these stories to do. And so there's a lot of scope for more people to join and to use it as a resource. The other thing I've been thinking about, because we are part of the education circle, because of course our collective autobiography is a huge educational resource to anywhere in the world, and to any depth people want to take it, because we also have research papers up there, so even researchers would find it very interesting. Sylvia just finished putting up a sociological study from 1977. It's remarkable how relevant that is still today. It talks about feedback and decision making, about relationship structures, from then, and then I read it today and go, wow, this is still quite relevant, really. And we have the most recent one. I think the most recent one was from a lady who did one of the last experience weeks as part of her summer practice in a Californian university, and her paper is up there as well. Or Noah Joubert's dissertation on decision making, which he called herding cats. So there is that kind of stuff up there as well. And so it is a phenomenal resource. Yeah. So lots more opportunities to do more with it. And we need the willing hands, because we can only do what we can do day by day with who we are. And we always welcome more people. We always welcome project work, but also if somebody feels that they want to be an editor or they want to be on the core team, we'd love to hear from them. Yeah. So with regards to education, in the education circle, I could see us doing various programs at various levels, a 2-hour how to use the website best and just sort of learn, and in that process perhaps even improve the website, or a heritage week, where people would come and stay here and use the resources of the website to get like a look through the Swiss cheese, a history look of the place, and still speak to some of our elders, because quite a lot of them are now in their 80s, and who knows how long they're still around, and to do that in a way embedded in an introduction to the place would make those encounters just that much more meaningful. That was one project we've been involved with last year with the Education Circle, was to create the first self-study guide. When I say first, that's really quite wrong, because the foundation, of course, always had the introduction material.
And also Eileen Caddy created one with David Earl Platts. Wasn't that a self-study? Well, it was a self-study book.
Yes, yeah.
On love or something.
I actually didn't think about that one. That's something to look into, yeah. I need to look that up. And of course, there was a quest which was created here, which is a self-study guide. But this is more, we called it the self-study guide of just getting a little bit of a glimpse of this community. Yeah. And so we put the autobiographies, but also just some videos from the website that give a relatively short, condensed introduction, so that people could just become more prepared when they be more prepared when they come here and make better use of their time. Even if they only come for a tour, they could still benefit from reading up beforehand, so that they learn more in their contact time. Yeah.
I know at one point there was a talk about creating little audio clips for different parts of the park, like a self-guided tour.
Yes.
Anything happened?
No, yes, there is one. Actually, there is one which is sadly very buried at the moment. Roger did one with Sam, an eco tour on 68 stops, and it sits on the PED website at the moment. It's not that easy to find. We've made a post on the COIF website because we did a topic on tours to the park. And because we came across this lovely, gorgeous, produced first, as far as we know, first guide from 1995, done by Harley and Kelly Miller, with these beautiful line drawings. So again, we sought the permissions and got them and put that up. And then we realized that there were many different additions to that visitor's guide. And so we put that up. And then JT wrote to us and said, "Oh, I've done this eco tour based on the visitor's guide, but as a complement to it." So we have put that up. And then he said, "And my wife Sam has done with Roger this eco tour." So all of that is in the tours to the park topic. So you can look that up. And I've actually had a meeting with Roger only yesterday saying we need to do more with that eco tour. And how about QR codes? So something may or may not come of that. Again, it's something which I can't personally drive. I can support. But he's going to talk to Pip in the visitor center and see whether that wants to fly. I think it's very crucial. But of course, the question then is, how many people do we want? How many visitors can we cope with walking around our homes? Yeah. So that was an interesting question that was raised in the education circle on Wednesday. So how are we doing that well so that the residential community can stay hospitable and welcoming to the people that come? And how can the people that come have meaningful experiences without a negative impact? Like North Coast 500 experience, a phenomenally successful tourist undertaking, which basically is killing the area that it's loving. Yeah. So we do need to be mindful how to best do that. But I'm always for not throttling things down to start with, but to really be open, but then mindful of the impact. Yeah.
Well, I suppose as the park becomes more full of permanent residents, then that becomes more of a problem, because a lot of these buildings used to be very temporary.
Exactly.
And then bit by bit, they've gradually been sold off and turned into permanent homes. And so it becomes more like a town than a living experiment where people are coming and going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but if you look back again in the history, that dynamic between residential needs and educational needs was in discussion in the mid-70s hugely. And community members at the time chose to create communal living situations out with the park, quite a few houses in the village.
The
station house, harbor house, etc. But which of course triggered some of the fears in the village that they would get ethnically cleansed and taken over because all these people would come and take up all the habitat, the accommodation. But that was a debate then. And then Cluny came online. And then was the idea, well, would Cluny be the main educational campus and the park would be the residential area? And you and I have seen that dance between the different nature of Cluny and the park. And it's always been a creative tension. The community has never fully settled on being a workshop center. And we're not a workshop center. We are a village that is willing to share its learnings with visitors and guests and temporary residents. But how to do that in a sustainable way that enhances the social and economic well-being of the village and not destroy it, that is a dance to be mindful of. But right now, of course, we want more people to come, because with the collapse of the Findhorn Foundation, the local economy is struggling. The shop and the cafe, and so much was depending on the guests coming and using the services, and that needs to find now a new current, new stream to be nourished by. And it is, the Caravan Park, again in the education circle last week, Tim said, we had 10,000 visitors last year and we're heading for 12,000 this year. So they're just coming in different ways. And how can we make access to the learnings in a way that is sustainable for the people who live here and also nourishes the local enterprise? It's an interesting and beautiful challenge. Yeah. There is one more thingy that we haven't touched on is that since the last year and a half, we've put up something called Community News. So Community News is a page that came about because with the Findhorn Foundation changing so dramatically in 2023, there was all this question of what's happening at Findhorn, we want to know more. And we responded to that with a post that's called Community News. And we put in newsletters from different organizations, their members' newsletters, their updates, NFD, Findhorn Hinterland Trust, Park Eco Village Trust, the Findhorn Foundation, NFA, when they have that Eco Village Findhorn Community Benefit Society. They are very, very good. They're sending, 2 or 3 a month. And so that page actually gives you a real life, on the date, look into the complexity of the village, which is quite remarkable. Yeah. And last summer there was one month for a newsletter between 2 Celtic festivals where I didn't get so many by the end. So I did a little report, and I did a report on the Midsummer Festival in the cafe, and so much had gone on. And just before it finished, actually quite a few other updates came in, and it just shows the vibrancy of the park. And it's a lovely page to explore. But of course it is sort of quite specific information and quite detailed information if a reader wants to dive into that. It's lovely. Yeah.
Thanks for agreeing to speak with me.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And hopefully this gives people a bit more of an overview of the site and what's in it, because I didn't realise there were 1,400 articles. And I didn't realise that there was all of the the One Earth magazines and all these research papers as well. I saw it more as a kind of personal autobiography site, and didn't realise it was more about the whole history.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was fascinating because in the early research time, we came across the proposal that Abbot Chrisman had made for communications in the foundation about the archive project. And what we realized is that we were fulfilling one significant aspect of his, which was the community side. But because the foundation had stopped doing archive, we needed to take on the other one as well. And Terry was very, very keen on that. And so we've basically now straddling both of those. Yeah. And in a way, we're doing it with too little resource, but we're doing a great job. And I always say to myself, particularly I need to say to myself, is we're not working for today. We're working for the next few decades, and we can only do what we can do, and it's good enough, and people will appreciate it, and they do. I mean, the feedback we get is just beautiful. Yeah.